Whoop whoop juggalos, whoop whoop ninjas and ninjettes and juggalites.
I'll never forget my first girl-boy camping trip. It was freshman year and me and my friend Marcus Chang took our girlfriends to Makeout Mountain. My older brother had given us the idea. He insisted it was a guaranteed bone session and that nothing gets a girl hotter than a campfire and s'mores. I admit, it sounded a little bit far-fetched, but being a virgin and dealing with newly found hormones, I was willing to try anything. It was a long drive, but after what felt like forever, we eventually arrived at 4:36 p.m., and surprisingly, the place was empty. I gave Marcus a bro nudge and whispered perfect. He winked and replied, "Tonight we'll get our dicks wet in the name of Narnia." Marcus was a bit of a faggot, but I always did appreciate his enthusiasm. We set up our tents at campsite 69. Marcus told me subliminal messaging was the key to getting poontang, and seeing as he had sex at least one time before, who was I to question it? The sun was setting and I began to get a little nervous. I made sure I had a Jimmy in my wallet and gave Marcus the sign to set the mood. "I don't know about you girls, but I sure am in the mood for some s'mores," Marcus said. "You know what? That does sound pretty good," I replied. About 15 minutes into s'mores and chill, we heard a branch snap behind us, and the girls instantly became on edge. So I tried to calm them down by informing them it was probably just a squirrel trying to get a nut.
Go check this guy out, he's pretty cool.
Marcus gave me a look of approval for my genius use of the subliminal messaging tactic. But the girls, not convinced, urged me and Marcus to go check it out. "No problem," I said, a little frustrated. "Let's go, Marcus." We grabbed 2 flashlights and headed off. We scoped the perimeter of the campsite, and about halfway around, Marcus froze in fear. A few feet ahead of us was an elderly man spying on our girlfriends. He didn't notice us, so we quickly shut off the flashlights and began to silently figure out what we were going to do. Luckily, Marcus was a 5th degree black belt, and I was a reserve on the freshman wrestling team. And we both knew if there was any hope of us getting laid, that we had to scare off this pervert. I grabbed a stick, and Marcus picked up a grapefruit-sized rock, and we made our way over to the Nefarian. The closer we got, I noticed that there was a bird-watching book right next to the man. And before I could inform Marcus we made a mistake,
It was too late.
he began to relentlessly beat the man. I begged and pleaded for Marcus to cut it out, and he finally did, but it was too late.
I fucking love the internet.
He had
the
killed the
fucking
poor
weird,
old
creepy
man.
shit you can find.
I picked up the bird-watching book and threw it at Marcus and screamed, "What have you done?" I taught that pervert a lesson, but after looking at what was in his hands, he realized he made a mistake. He wasn't a pervert? Nope, I replied. Just a fucking loser. We gotta hide the body, Marcus. I told him to drag the body deep into the woods and start digging.
The next part's fucked
while
up.
I go inform the girls that everything's okay.
Oh shit.
Marcus disappeared into the darkness with the body, and as soon as the coast was clear, I immediately called the police. I told them I saw a young Asian man attacking an elderly person, and then I told the girls we had to leave.
And he rented out his boy.
A few days later, I saw Marcus on the news. Apparently, he was facing 40 years in jail for first-degree murder. and he was set to go on trial in the fall. To this day, I haven't told anybody the true story, that I was a part of what happened to that poor man. But being a virgin, there was no way I was going to lose my virginity in prison. I feel guilty sometimes, but you know what they say. Fuck it. You gotta get busy living, or get busy dying. That night I had sex with my girlfriend and Marcusy. Apparently my brother was right and s'mores really did get girls horny.
I'll put the name in the description. You guys should check this guy out. He's fucking pretty cool stories. Some of them are funny like this. It was my final year of med school. And before I could earn my degree, I was required to intern at either a hospital or nursing home. But since I missed the first week of school due to an extreme jet skiing accident, I didn't have the choice on where. I returned and the only available internship was at the St. Martin's Hospital and the mental asylum. My mother was quite distraught. The situation gave her a bad case of the heebie-jeebies, but after a few pep talks, I reassured her I'd be fine. But boy howdy, was I wrong. My first day on the job, I was assigned with supplying all the patients with suppositories. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's the process of inserting medication into a patient's anus. Yeah, I know. Icky. Anyway, things were going smooth until it came time to help Sergeant Rufus. My boss warned me he was one of the more difficult patients and asked if I would like some assistance. It was a nice offer, but I declined. I entered the room and introduced myself. I informed Sergeant Rufus that it was time for his medication, and without saying a word, he simply rolled over and lowered his pants. He then spoke in a soft voice and told me to spread his cheeks like butter and give him my best shot. It made me feel quite disturbed, but knowing this was my last stop to freedom, I ignored the comment and started the process. I began to insert the first pill, and to my displeasure, Sergeant Arnold started moaning. And under his breath he said, "Is that all you got, you big-lipped baboon?" Disgusted, mortified, and slightly insulted, I again ignored him and continued doing my job. He requires quite a few different medications, and with each one his moaning grew louder. After I finished, I washed my hands and asked if there was anything else I could do. He said no, but asked if I could just put something on TV for him. I said of course. I grabbed the remote and asked what kind of films he was interested in. And to my displeasure, he responded adult films. All day since I woke up.
He told me Schindler's Fist was a personal favorite, and that I should check to see if it was on demand. Not fitting into his buffoonery, I ignored him and suggested Medea Goes to Jail.
Medea Goes to Jail.
And for whatever reason, that really set him off. After a brief pause, he told me the only way he'd watch a cross-dressing monkey was if the title was Medea Gets AIDS and Dies a Terrible Death. He then told me if I ever insulted him with such a stupid suggestion again, he would slap the bitch out of me. Having had enough being disrespected, I admittedly lost my cool. I grabbed the old man by his shirt and let him know that I was a real-ass nigger, and that I don't play that hoe shit. I also informed him if he continued his antics, I'd beat the brakes off his punk ass. But his reaction wasn't what I expected. A smile slowly crept across his ashy and mildly chapped lips,
And then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a tape recorder. Ah, shit, I said under my breath. His smile faded into a smirk, and then he asked if I knew what blackmail was. What do you want from me, old man? I shot back in a defeated voice. Sergeant Arnold informed me that he hadn't felt the touch of another human since the Reagan administration, and that if I wanted him to delete the recording, I had to change that. He then told me what he desired. He wanted me to give him an old-fashioned wet Walter. Generational gap aside, I had absolutely no idea what the fuck that meant.
Chive coffee.
But I knew it wasn't something I'd be willing to do. However, with what was on the line, I asked him to explain.
Yeah, man, I'm fucking
The sick old bastard started licking his mildly chapped, frost-covered lips. He licked them like they were covered in yogurt or ice cream, whilst his eyebrows shifted up and down faster than a child playing with a light switch. And during this overly sexualized advance, he let out a faint moaning noise under his breath, like the old man from Family Guy. After about 30 seconds, he again began to speak. He told me that before we could proceed, I'd need to gather a few items, which included a gallon of milk, a Super Mario Yoshi costume, 4 bananas, and some Jergens hand lotion. A million different thoughts were going through my mind until I was brought back to reality by Sergeant Arnold. "Hello," he said, like a sarcastic, egotistical ratchet skank in high school. "Are you going to just stand there, or we finna get this shit poppin'?" I hit Sergeant Arnold with a quick right, knocked him out. I reached in his pocket and grabbed the tape recorder. I ran out the room and signed his charts in another student's name, and then I got the fuck out of Dodge. That following Monday on the school website, I learned the student was arrested on elderly abuse charges, and luckily for me, the security footage at the time wasn't working, so there was no proof I was even there.
This kind here, OG wax.
Sergeant Arnold's medication clouded his memory, and he couldn't confirm or deny who assaulted him. Weeks passed and I finished my time at the hospital, earned my last credit and never looked back. I know what I did was wrong, but to be dead honest, I don't give a fuck. That old nigga had it coming, and if I catch him in the streets, it's heads on sight. On my mama, cuz.
On my mama,
On
cuz.
mama.
Oh man, I'm all fucking warm and fuzzy. Feels good. Real happy.
I'll never forget the first time I tried marijuana. It was with my 2 best pals, Stacy and Juanito. They were my Hispanic neighbors and they knew I've been wanting to get high. I gave them $25 and we planned to meet under the bridge behind our houses and try it out. I eagerly waited to see Juanito and Stacy roll up with the marijuana, and it felt like forever. I started getting nervous. My mother told me if I ever did drugs that I would die of AIDS like Jenny and Forrest Gump. I knew she was lying, but still, dying of AIDS like Jenny and Forrest Gump would probably hurt. I was lost in thought, and suddenly I heard Stacy's voice. "Hey girl, you ready to get high as a bitch?" "Oh yeah, ho," I nervously replied. Juanito then pulled out what he called the El Blunto 2000.
El Blunto 2000.
He lit it up and told me to do the honors. I placed the El Blunto 2000 upon my lips and inhaled the sweet aroma that filled the fridge we were standing under. It entered my lungs with such a presence I instantly coughed. Great googly moogly, y'all niggas wasn't lying. This is some fire. We proceeded to finish the entire blunt. I know, thug shit. We were chilling under the bridge waiting for the high to subside. Juanito was going on about how Drake slotted Meek Mill on back to back. And Stacy tried to lie and say Meek did his thing, but she couldn't even name his diss track. Into our conversation we were interrupted by a voice. A man standing behind a bush, wearing a bicycle helmet, racing sunglasses, and a tank top with nacho cheese stains. He said sorry for interrupting, but he was wondering if we saw a totally badass 10-speed bike with pegs on it and a baseball card in the spokes. Confused because the bike was clearly right behind him, we simply told him to turn around. He then turned back and said, well, I also have another question. Do you guys know where I can get some pot? If I'm not mistaken, I smell some of the finest chronic this side of town. Juanito laughed and said, what you need, senor? The man stepped from behind the bushes and asked if we accepted IOUs. And he wasn't wearing any pants. We all freaked out. Juanito, without hesitation, began to run. I grabbed Stacy's hand and followed pursuit. The man was right behind us, dick flopping around and all. He was gaining ground, so I put it into high gear when I noticed Juanito lost his balance. He ate shit right in front of me, but luckily I was able to hurdle over him. He reached his hand out for help, but the pantless scoundrel was too close. I simply made a cell phone gesture with my hand and placed it on my ear, and mouthed the words, call me. Me and Stacy flagged down a car as soon as we could, and luckily 4 grown men got out and chased down the pervert. Lucky for Juanito, he was into chicks. But it's still pretty fucked up that a naked man attacked him. So, random biker, let's not meet again. But if we do, at least have the courtesy to put on a pair of pants.
This is brought to you by Fuck You. Run out and get some fucking Faygo.
It was story time. The time of day I hated most. Not because I didn't enjoy a nice book from time to time, but because around that time of day was when my digestive system would act up. If I wasn't fighting back the urge to shit myself, I was trying to muffle the sounds of my stomach gurgling by fake coughing and laughing inappropriately. Which, looking back, probably just drew more attention to myself anyways. I'll never forget the day I slipped up. We were reading The Outsiders and I just ate 3 slices of cheese pizza and 2 cartons of double chocolate milk. I should mention I'm lactose intolerant, but I have an addiction to cheese and all dairy products. The diarrhea hit me sometime into the 3rd chapter. My asshole clenched with fear of a chocolate surprise, so I raised my hand while sweat began to form on my brow. The teacher briefly looked up, out of reflex, but she continued reading to what I assume was just finished the chapter. But my hand remained in the air, and she continued to read. Almost at my breaking point, I said, "Excuse me, miss." But halfway into my plea, the teacher shot back, "Charles, please wait until I'm done reading, and then you can be excused." "But, ma'am, I'm going to—" "Charles, one more outburst, and I will have to take away a golden star from you." So there I sat,
Ooh.
moments away from
Scared.
shitting myself. I slowly scooted away from everybody, and then I let it rip. A warm, soft feeling filled my pants, and soon followed a scent I knew would spread fast. Knowing I only had a few minutes until someone started asking questions, I yelled out, "Hey everybody, I think Thomas J. just shit himself. I totally smell it." Soon everyone started screaming and running around, and the teacher cried out that Thomas J. was a sick fuck. Thomas was mute, so he couldn't defend himself. I knew he knew I was lying, but rumors spread fast in elementary school. So during the commotion, I scurried into the hall, and I disposed of my soiled underwear in Thomas J.'s cubby. I made my way to the cafeteria afterwards, because it was lunchtime, and after recess I returned to class. To my surprise, there was a note left on my desk. I opened it, and what it read my Christian lips cannot repeat. But I will tell you it involved a bowl of Captain Crunch, fecal matter, and my mother's breakfast. The note was signed by Thomas J. I looked up and was instantly met with an evil stare. Although the mute boy could not speak, he spoke volumes with how he looked at me. It penetrated my soul, and I knew exactly what he was trying to say. And the fact I threw a pair of my soiled underwear in his cubby was only sure to fuel the fire that was already burning fiercely. So I did what any kid my age would have. I told the principal Thomas J. had a list of students' names in his cubby, and I thought he was gonna bring a gun. The list was really for his bar mitzvah that was coming up this summer, but I ripped off the edges and turned it in as evidence. I never saw Thomas J. again after that. I heard his parents sent him off to some boot camp.
Fuck, man, I gotta fight it. I gotta
Not a day goes by that I don't feel terrible.
Fuck, start to fall asleep.
But Lord knows I couldn't go down as the kid who shit himself. So Thomas had to take an L on that one. Thomas J., let's not meet again. But if we do, can you have my underwear dry cleaned and returned? It was my favorite pair. It was about 2 years into the second Bush administration. I was just entering my teenage years, and I was invited to my first slumber party. It was at Miranda's house. She was my best friend, and I was named Vice President of Fun, and I was in charge for the night's festivities. Of course, I was going to go with musical chairs. Heads up, 7-Up, and I planned on putting someone's hand in a bowl of warm water. But I wanted it to be special. I wanted to go next level. I planned a secret trip to the cemetery next to my grandmother's house. It was within walking distance, and I thought telling Let's Not Meet stories in that atmosphere would be pretty creepy. The girls showed up around 7:30, just as the sun began to fall from the sky above.
I started the night off with karaoke and bitches went nuts. Tina was like, I can rap Nicki Minaj verses. I didn't know why she stated that with such pride. It's not like she wrote the shit. But she was having fun, so I put on Anaconda and let her go first. My girl Katrina had me put on Celine Dion's It's All Coming Back to Me. And she absolutely killed that shit. Even Miranda's mom came from the other room and said it was fire. And she's an all hating ass bitch, usually. The party was an absolute hit. Beth told me she wanted me to be the president of Gangsta for her upcoming sock hop. And Carly J said she wanted me to plan her brother's bar mitzvah this summer. I told the girls I had one more surprise in store and told everyone to get their coats. Everybody was really curious. We were going and I was all like, hey y'all, chill, we'll be there soon. And they were like, come on, tell us. And I was like, no, it'll ruin the surprise. We approached the entrance, and I told the girls I have unlimited data, and Let's Read put out some new stories today. Who's ready to shit their pants? All the girls started cheering and twerking. These bitches was loving this shit. I looked over at Miranda with a side eye, and she gave me a thumbs up and a wink. We started playing the new Let's Read stories, and I must say, even I started to get a little scared, and I wanted to leave a little early. That's when my fears worsened. I heard a squeaking noise coming from behind a tombstone. It sounded like SpongeBob when he had those squeaky shoes on, and he was being all obnoxious and shit. Or a clown rapidly honking his horn nose. We all heard it. We looked at each other and, since there was 8, we decided to investigate. 4 of us stayed put, and the rest of us snuck off, and we made our way around the cemetery until we were right behind the perpetrator. He was an elderly man, probably in his late 50s or early 60s. He had on a white t-shirt and a pair of beige Dockers, and I don't know why, but hiking boots. This was already creepy enough, but he was also jerking off. We snuck up behind him and pulled out our cameras and started filming. We told him if he didn't amscray, we would turn this into the police. He said he was just exercising and it was just a misunderstanding. Disgusted by his horrid lie, I told him I was about to exercise my right to kick his pasty ass. He scurried off into the darkness with his pants still around his ankles, and we all made our way back to Miranda's house. We didn't tell her mother. She would have just bitched all night and ruined the whole party. But we all laugh about it still. So, creepy old man, let's not meet.
Again.
But if we do, you better get ready, 'cause I'm gonna whoop your ass.
Whoop whoop.